Hello, everybody. So I'm going to be kicking off a series on the topic of precession, which is a very important topic for the times that we are living in right now. There's a lot going on in the world, and a lot of people are wondering what exactly is happening right now. Is it the apocalypse? Is it the end of the earth? Is it, a revival? And so there's all these questions about the times and that we're living in. And so me being a history teacher, I started studying a lot of these topics over the last few years. I've always studied ancient civilizations, and I've looked at a lot of eschatology and, view of the end of times and all of that. And so I started seeing a common thread among a lot of the stuff that we read. And one of the first things that I realized was that when people look at the book of Revelation or the apocalypse, they often impose a 21st century view on that, and they try to predict what's going to happen or what's going on, and you come up with all of these different viewpoints, right? You could something that's very hopeful to completely devastating doom and gloom type of view. And so I think it's really important that we look at how the archaic view of it and how the ancient civilizations viewed this topic of precession, and then try to fit that in with maybe how that makes sense to the world that we live in today and how it's connecting to all of those things. And so basically what I'm going to be doing is explaining precession and how the ancient cultures viewed it, and then further on in maybe another video addressing how this might tie to the Bible, how it might tie to eschatology, and how it might tie to the times that we're living in right now. And so first off, to really explain the topic of precession, this is a science, okay? And it's actually mentioned in the Bible in Job 38. It's called the Mazzaroth. But basically what precession is a science of a very slow motion of the earth, okay? The earth is on a very slow tilt that actually takes roughly about 26,000 years to complete. And it moves so slowly that the stars in the sky only move 72 degrees 1 degree every 72 years. And so it's almost a whole lifetime to even see 1 degree of motion in the stars. But somehow the ancient cultures knew about this, and they built whole belief systems around it and even architectural structures around it because it was so important to them. And basically, to explain it, the Mazzaroth is mentioned in the Bible. It's a cosmological clock, okay? A literal clock in nature, a clock in the cosmos that ancient cultures used to use to determine the times, and like the sons of Issachar, understand the times and know what they should do. And so this is really as I studied this, I started to realize that a lot of ancient cultures all understood this. And it's, from the Mayans all the way with 2012, and I'll address that a little bit later with that specific time, but the Mayans, the Aztecs, all the different ages or the different earths, and the Kali Yuga or the Yugas in ancient India, Native American cultures address this. And, it was all within their belief system. And so basically what happens with the precession, as the earth slowly moves, one great year or one age or one earth, every 26,000 years, the stars slowly move in the sky, okay? And the way that the ancients saw this was that they referred to this as the four corners of the earth. And we look at that as they automatically assume that the earth was a flat surface with like a square with four different, angles or whatever. And that's how they understood the four corners of the earth. But that actually was not the way they understood it. The four corners of the earth were a very specific earth that was going to last for a certain amount of time, would end, and then a new earth was going to start. Now, let me explain that. We get into a little bit deeper with that. So basically, because the earth slowly shifts 26,000 years, what ends up happening is each earth, so to speak, was marked by the leading zodiac on the spring equinox. Okay, so basically what you have is as the earth moves, each zodiac that rules on the spring equinox is going to rule for roughly about 2,100 years. I'm just approximating because all the constellations are different sizes and stuff like that. But roughly 2,100 years, what would happen on the spring equinox was the last constellation that was setting, the sun would rise And so that specific zodiac would house the sun on the spring equinox for 2,100 years. And that would mark the era or the age or the great year, so to speak, within the precessional switch here. And so the four corners of the earth was a specific chronological time that would last roughly about 2,100 years. And the spring equinox, or the four corners of the earth, was the four zodiacs that would house the sun on the two equinoxes, the spring and autumn equinox, as well as the two solstices. And that would mark a four corner of the earth time where the earth would indefinitely end and be shifted into a new epoch, a new era, a new age, when the next ruling zodiac would be. And so the ancient cultures knew about this. And again, a lot of their structures were built around this precessional information, the Giza floor plan, Angkor Wat. All of these sites actually knew about this precessional switch, and they had a belief system around it. And so that's the way the ancients viewed this four corners of the earth, that there were definitely going to be earths that were going to change. And it wasn't necessarily a complete wiping out of one earth and then all of a sudden a new one would be created or appear, but that, you know, they understood it chronologically and precessionally that a new earth would definitely end and a new one would start. And so before I get into how a lot of this ties into the Bible, I was going to mention one thing that really kind of caught my attention about this whole precessional switch and all of that. So there's a site in Turkey that's called Göbekli Tepe. And this was a very recent discovery. It was discovered in the 1990s. And this site was built roughly around like 10,500 BC or so. It's the largest, oldest megalithic site that they've discovered, and it's kind of put a lot of old civilization stories and tipped it on its head. But basically, Göbekli Tepe was built in Turkey and around that time period, and then intentionally buried. Okay, now when this was discovered, they started to see that Göbekli Tepe seemed to have constellations and this astronomical kind of viewpoint of precession, and seemed to document a specific time period, and then it was intentionally buried as if it needed to be discovered to show what was going around during that time period. Now, ironically or coincidentally, that specific time period, they're starting to realize that was actually a very cataclysmic time in the earth. That was actually the younger Dryas period of the Ice Age, where you had mass flooding, mass megafauna and megaflora extinction, and this upheaval that took place. And not only Göbekli Tepe seemed to indicate this time period, but a lot of other ancient cultures as well. And even the story of Atlantis is that Plato put it at this specific time period. And so the thing that I found interesting about Göbekli Tepe is that the specific tablet that they have, tablet 43, seems by some people, again, this is what some people have come up with, and it started to spark something in my head, is that it documents a specific constellation or a specific kind of star alignment in the sky that is starting to come around again during our time period. Okay, so this started giving me like different connections to the Bible and even to the days of Noah, so to speak, that Jesus talked about. And so again, Göbekli Tepe, it's about a 3-day journey from Mount Ararat, where the ark was described as landing after the floods of Noah. So you have this whole flood time period going around this time. All ancient cultures have these flood stories about some cataclysmic event that took place, and basically now all of a sudden you have this site pop up right around this specific event, 3-day journey from Mount Ararat, and it's seeming to document a specific star alignment that is starting to happen in the 21st century. And so basically that is going to be the end of the first video. I'm going to end up talking a lot more about this. It's not necessarily doom and gloom and that we're going to face a whole destruction of the earth and all of that, but just so we can look at this shift in the ages and know specifically what is going on right now in the world, this cosmic shift that is taking place. And because that's actually happening, whether you believe it or not, it is happening. Okay, it's again, this whole science of precession, we are going through a cosmological shift scientifically. okay? And I'm going to talk a lot about that in the next video, specifically tying it to the Bible and specifically tying it even to some eschatology. And we'll talk about how we can prepare for those times, what we should be looking at in those times, and how we should be viewing each other and humanity during those times. God bless.